our field trip tour, the next step is this large building residential complex with buildings about 20 different floors, and we are connecting the meters that are actually down at the basement level, about a couple meters below the ground level. So in the next steps, we're going to take a look at where we have installed the DCU in that particular case, and where all the meters are, so that they are connected within our Weightless network. The challenge here obviously is that you have to connect all of them where the meters are underground, and there's a lot of them, and the buildings are very tall. So there's not much other ways to do this if you want to use wires or 4G. So let's continue the trip to look at the DCU and our meters.
Yes. Let's go inside.
So the challenge is that you don't know if you have 4G signal there.
Right. So this is a very large residential building. So you will see the basement where all the meters are staggered together is pretty large, and we are at the basement level, so you don't necessarily have 4G coverage or cellular coverage there. And you have a large density of meters, which also can be covered, and in many places in Taiwan, and you will see there as well, they will be covered so we can start there. They will be covered actually by metal sheets, metal door protecting the meter. So it needs to communicate from that spot. So actually connecting to the base station outdoor is not necessarily possible. From those meters close to the door might be possible, but deep into that large basement that we will walk you through is not necessarily the case. So that's a type of deployment where actually we would have put the base station inside the basement itself, in the control room, electric control room, which is pretty much in the center of that basement. So maybe we'll take a closer look at the meters that are at the other side of the basement. So let's walk to the other end.
And we are almost there.
Right. So here is our colleague installing actually a fan in a meter, as a procedure we've seen. So same procedure, opening the cover of the meter, breaking the seal, because there is an existing seal and we have to replace the seal every time. Put the communication module that you will see blinking, is trying to establish communication with the meter and then with the base station. So you will see our operator also take a photo of the meter. We have a deployment mobile app, so they only have to take a photo. It will record the serial number of the device, the meter ID, and even the seal number that are all to be reported to Taipei as a track record of the installation.
So we are next to 36 of those meters here. We opened the door, but actually they're behind one metal door. And these are single phase ones. There's a couple of other meters here right there, which being 3-phase meters, actually in this case they happen to be behind 2 levels of metal doors. We'll talk about the challenge to connect them, right?
Right, so we are in the same basement, and actually those meters are behind 2 layers of metal door. So obviously reaching that from the outside is close to impossible, or at least not very efficient. So having a base station or a virtual relay, as we described, directly in the basement is definitely the best deployment solution and the most efficient. So those meters are actually behind 2 metal doors because, as we described, these are residential and apartment building meters, so they are single phase 110 volt in Taiwan. But actually our communication module is also deployed on 3-phase meters, and makes no difference for the communication module. It will detect what type of meters that is. So those meters are actually 3-phase meters that are equipped with exactly the same communication module, and will detect the meter data, and will send actually 3 times more data than a single phase meter because it will measure the consumption on all 3 phases. So yes, that's one of the challenges of deploying in Taiwan, this kind of deployment condition. So that makes Weightless the most suitable solution, and the hybrid deployment options we have can cover for both, for all the conditions and cases we face.
And you talk about single phase and 3-phase meters. Obviously we don't make those meters, but we'll work with many different kinds of brands, right? So there's a number of different meter vendors we integrate with, even in this particular Taiwan installation.
Right. So Taipei has installed those new smart meters, which could be from different brands, and they all comply to the standard DLMS COSEM. Our communication module does comply to that standard. So no matter what is the meter vendor, you will be always able to communicate and retrieve the data from that meter. And so the only difference between single phase and three phase or one directional or bidirectional meters will just be the amount of data to be sent. But it makes very small differences only and doesn't change anything on the infrastructure side of things or capacity-wise is equivalent. Yes. So we are able to work with any DLMS COSEM compliant meter.
And here we have multiple of those instances. We're next to 36 of a single and maybe 4 of each of those three-phase ones. We just passed a number of those here. And this is true for every building here. So in this area, there should be several hundreds of those connected, right?
Right. So we have those cases where they are all aggregated in the basement, and we have those cases where are in all the floor of the building. So the location of the base station that is the most suitable depend on those cases. Indeed.
So we adapt to the topology of the network,
right,
with always the best, most elegant, performant and cost-effective solution.
Right.
So that's the different toolboxes that we have, the tools that we have to provide the best network for Taipei AMI.
Right.